Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Training Wheels Off Support Group YouTube channel for people with Parkinson's and care partners. Normally I don't record an introductory video for our monthly guests, but this month our guest, Judith Sachs, who started the program Close Contact for Couples, she was having some internet problems, so there's various times during the video you'll notice that either she appears to be frozen, but there's still audio, or she's frozen and there's no audio. So I do apologize for that. If you are interested in the presentation slides, please let me know. Send me an email and roger.trigelis@gmail.com, and I can send you those slides so you can have them if you miss something in the presentation by her. So with that being said, I'll stop talking and we'll go into the meeting with our monthly guest, which was Judith Sachs. I hope you enjoyed the program as much as we all did.
It is a real pleasure to be here. I love that you're taking wing and jumping off, no holds barred. I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about myself. I have been working with the Parkinson's community since 2012, when I became a Dance for Parkinson's teacher here in Philadelphia. And by 2017, I was the certified teacher in Pennsylvania. I think I am now. What does that mean? It means that I have a lot of expertise from my past about rhythm, movement, the brain and the body moving together and apart. And it also means that I have a lot of experience with couples. And so in 2017, after I was certified, I thought, it's wonderful. I love teaching the dance classes. Music is important. Music gives us rhythm. But on the other hand, people don't come home and dance together. What do? They sit down and have a cup of coffee. They hopefully hold hands when they're walking down the street, maybe on uneven surfaces, like one person's on grass and one person's on pavement. And I have to interrupt and just say, Judd and Nancy Eason, who are here in this room, I think, and Roger and Sue will be probably able to talk about this program as well as I, because they took it. I think it was before COVID, but I may be wrong about that. Yes. And I'm getting rave reviews down here in the chat if you happen to be looking at your chat. But it has grown and changed since then, mostly because I feel I have sort of given over the program to the couples who decide to do this with me. And there is a lot of new interest. Well, it's not new interest, but finally interest coming to the fore in terms of speaking to neurologists and movement disorder specialists and social workers and physical therapists about intimacy and Parkinson's. Because what we do as people is a lot more important than how do I get out of a chair. We do kids, the shower, dealing with falls, dealing with walking backwards. But the core of this program and why I'm here today is to talk to you about being a couple. I am assuming most people on the screen are my age or a little bit younger, and probably have been partnered, if you are partnered, for 30 or 40 years. I have had couples who, I don't know if it was Roger and Sue, have a very long relationship. Some people met in high school, right? Parkinson's, or actually any major chronic condition, changes the way that we relate to one another as two people who spend a life together, but that couple is still there. And so the nature of this program, Close Contact for Couples with Parkinson's, has a lot to do with the kind of communication that we have always done with each other and that maybe kind of fades away over time. I remember my late husband always saying, don't think you can read my mind, because even though we've been together for decades, there are things going on in my mind that you may not know about. And I think that, again, is another big piece of this, is speaking the words. Today, I'm having trouble getting out of the chair. I really need a lot of help. Or today, I'm in a real on period and everything's working. Please don't grab my hand and start pulling me out of the chair. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my screen. So now, Roger, you have to make me co-host again, because when I went out, I lost my privilege. No.
Should be all set.
Oh, okay. There it goes. Okay. I'm going to share. And just tell me that you are seeing the green on the screen.
Yep, we see it. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So my company, by the way, is called Anyone Can Move, because it used to be Anyone Can Dance. And then a bunch of people told me, whoops, I don't dance. I'm not interested in dancing. But movement is something, yes, something that I want to do. So okay. This is the situation that we try to address, is that you're in the same space, you share the same bed, the same kitchen, the same living room, and yet there's a big gap in between. And Parkinson's put it there. So what we're going to try and do is put these two people back together again. I don't really have to read you from this list. It's a gigantic list of motor, non-motor symptoms, the medications, whether you're on or off, the fact that apathy really does invade a relationship, and sometimes it's not something you're always aware of. I have to say that the care partner may have some apathy as well, which we try to address. And certainly couples who spend a lot of time together, and as we all did during the 3 years of COVID, a lot of things became, the feeling of isolation became overwhelming, in addition to Parkinson's symptoms. So we're not going to take care of everything on this list, but we can become aware of things that may be separating the couple and maybe address that. The other part of this is pain. And I have to say that so many people that I talk to every day are having some kind of pain, and some people deal with pain really well, and they say it's part of the job. And I just do it. And other people are really, really affected by it. So about what I did on my holiday, because I feel it's painful. Okay. So things that happen when we touch in a different way, not grabbing, not using thumbs. As I think program, I keep saying to people, you don't have any thumbs. I want you to, and I'm going to show you after I show these slides what I mean by touching one another without thumbs. But we know that touching can really make a difference. Massage, sensual or sexual touch can in fact alleviate pain, at least for a while. So not a bad idea to include this as part of what happens in your life each day, or maybe every other day. People's self-image really changes as they age. I sure know this in terms of people without Parkinson's feel maybe they're not lovable anymore. Maybe their bodies are so different now that their partner sees them differently than when they first met. But the other thing about Parkinson's, of course, is the mask, the facial masking, or perhaps drooling, that again changes the aspect of what happens when two people look at each other. But I have to say, again, care partners are aging. Care partners maybe have been diagnosed with a variety of different illnesses, chronic conditions. And so it's not only one person who's changing in the relationship, and that has to be taken into consideration. So what do we mean by communication? I kind of think that this is an apt metaphor for Parkinson's, that Parkinson's is this rope that two people are trying to balance one another in a particular way. But of course, you know, if you've ever played this game, that if you're pulling apart, you're not coming back together. And in this situation, you really don't want one person winning and the other person losing. The idea is to let go of this rope of Parkinson's and come back together again. So all I can say is so much of what you do every day is medicalized, is seeing a doctor, a physical therapist, a speech therapist, dealing with medication, dealing with the decision to have DBS surgery. So I felt when I saw people waiting outside dance class, they had that kind of frozen look on their face. And I wanted to wipe that off and make them laugh. So one of the things we do is play absolutely ridiculous games. And in fact, I feel I've done my job if people are laughing. So what's the first idea of this is to be intimate with one another. You actually have to think about communication in a new way, making an actual time when you're going to sit down, a place to do it, no devices, no phone calls, and not worrying if you don't talk to each other. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've added to the close contact program, where we actually write love letters to one another. And I'll tell you how we do that. And then we put them in an envelope and bring them home. And we don't exchange them until we decide to have this date. And then we can exchange the love letters and see what it is about the other person that has kept us in this relationship for so long. It's really nice, again, to read these out loud to your partner. It can cause some embarrassment, but again, a lot of what happens during sex and intimate moments is kind of funny and embarrassing. So if you can do that with one another, you can surmount that hurdle. We know that you wouldn't be together this long if you didn't feel there was something very, very important, that you trust one another. And we're trying to regulate that fight or flight response. Sometimes the partner is the only person who really gets it. We may be hiding it from the rest of the world. So a lot of what happens in this class is to listen to one another. And in order to listen, the other person has to be able to couch what they want to say in a slightly different way so that the partner will understand. So I want to talk a lot about touch, and as soon as I turn this whole thing off, I will show you exactly what I mean. But this is the first thing we feel, right? That's the very, very first thing we feel, and it makes us understand that we're loved and cherished. And even though if any women on this screen are mothers, you will know that the birth experience, if you can remember, birth experience was pretty hard, pretty painful. But what comes out at the end is so extraordinary and revelatory. And you see yourself in such a different way. And for the men on the screen, understanding that holding that child for the first time is so different from anything you have ever done, right? And as many as you may have, each time is a different, wonderful experience. So what I want to bring back to the partnered relationship is that feeling of beginner's mind. What was it like the first time you did this? And you probably may have done it unconsciously, just taking a walk together. Well, now taking a walk together may involve a cane or a walker or a wheelchair. And so the idea of touch has really changed over the decades. And what we want to do is learn it again and not be afraid of learning it and not being afraid to say, I think I don't know what I'm doing yet. The idea of touch, and there's such good research about this, touch at any age, touch at any stage of life is something really rewarding. It fills us with warmth, attachment. This holding hands has a symbolic meaning, right? Because you are sharing things together. And we know that these nerve fibers in our hands can identify maybe what the other person is feeling without verbalizing it. Neither of you necessarily have to verbalize it. And we also know that the lack of touch, I think these new studies about what happened over the COVID years when people were isolated, when they did not have a partner, when they did not have the idea of just a hug, of just somebody touching you every once in a while, has really created this, a new pandemic of isolation and feeling a lack of emotions. So again, for those of you on screen who do not have a partner, wonderful to just be able to find a situation in which you can touch somebody. So the difference between what happens if you need to help your partner out of bed in the morning, if you need to help them in and out of a car, in and out of the shower, that's what we call functional. We want to make sure it's very safe and very secure. Sometimes I have couples use a gait belt, even when they don't need it, just to feel what that's like. And for those of you who may not know what a gait belt is, again, I can show that when we're not looking at slides. It's very different from this loving or intimate touch that just sort of happens as you walk through the room and you ruffle the person's hair, or you give them a little kiss on the cheek or squeeze their shoulder. Both of these things are really essential, but as one person assumes the role of patient or person with Parkinson's, and the other person assumes the role of partner, they suddenly stop doing this loving touch, or it becomes really, again, very frayed by that rope that they're holding on to together. Something I really want to bring back into the relationship. So I talk a little bit about the fact that many couples, and I think both couples who are here in the room today, the woman was a lot smaller than the man. So what do we do to make sure that the partner is really safe when doing some of this touch and transfer experience, and they are not trained as an occupational or physical therapist? So the way that I teach it is a kind of interesting, and again, I'm going to try and show this using a can of soda. We use physics to show where the center of mass and the center of gravity have to go together in order to make sure both people are safe. We also do, excuse me, don't use thumbs. I'm just going to have to take some water, excuse me. And learn to ask our partner, do you want me to touch your back or your underarm? Where does it feel better? So you see in this picture, we have the couple on the left in this old-fashioned waltz. And you can basically, if she were not wearing that big skirt, you could see all their limbs. But the couple on the right, who are in a tango pose, you can't tell where one person begins and another ends. And of course, that's the best feeling when part of you is part of the other person. So these are some pictures from an earlier version of this program. And again, you can see, especially with the couple on the left, she's a good deal shorter. She fits right under his underarm. And in that sequence, what we were doing was learning to walk first with one person on that gym mat, then both people. And when she had to support him, she could keep her arm around his back. And his center of mass, as you can see, is lower on his, is higher than hers, because men's center of gravity tends to be more in their chest region and women's more in their pelvic region. So we readjusted the way that they held each other so that they could happily walk on this mat together. And then one of the things I have partners do, kind of Tai Chi push hands. It can be done standing or seated. And again, the idea is nobody rules. Nobody starts the activity. Maybe one person is pushing a little and the other is pulling a little. And eventually they are simply moving in space together. It's not like one person is moving the other. And to the best of their ability, all the couples in this program, one person helps and the other is the helped. And then they switch roles so that the person who was being helped now helps the partner. And we have a variety of ways of managing that. So the person with Parkinson's, who's always being quote unquote taken care of, now gets to be the care partner. These people are taking turns. They take turns giving and receiving, and that's kind of what marriage is all about, right? So just to get into the nitty-gritty, probably things that are not discussed at your neurology or movement disorder appointments, maybe not even at when you're just talking to the nurse practitioner, are how do we recreate intimacy between us? So it's not necessarily sex that we're talking about. I mean, the idea is we want to be touching, we want to be close. You may have those wonderful jokes where you don't even have to say the punchline, because the other person knows as soon as you say the first few words of the joke, what's funny about it? That's because you've been together so long. And what we want to start doing also is paying attention to nonverbal cues. What is it that always makes you feel comfortable with this person? Is it the way that you snuggle in bed? Is it the way that both feet touch under the covers, regardless of anything else going on in that bed? We know that there's a lot of research, again, about this idea of romance or intimacy, lowering stress, helping with healing after surgery, making us more compliant with, you know, that exercise program that your physical therapist put you on, or eating the mind diet or the Mediterranean diet. If you're sharing this kind of thing, it's easier to do it with somebody than without. So the other interesting, we're always talking about dopamine here, but oxytocin is another really important hormone. They first discovered it with nursing mothers, but it also happens with touch and stroking, as well as with sex. So we're really interested in releasing more oxytocin. How do you start doing this? So I always say making a date is really important, and the date It sometimes won't happen. Maybe you're in an off period. Maybe somebody fell over the weekend and hurt their knee. But the idea is that you really want to make time for something unusual to happen between you. It didn't used to be unusual, but maybe for some of you, it now is unusual. I also realize that eye contact is sometimes, especially with some of the Parkinsonian symptoms, it is not always easy for partners to connect with eye contact, but you know that that's what you're trying for. Sorry, it's my doorbell. We're going to ignore that. These are all the great things that may happen. And here are some feet under the covers. I'd like you to know that there are some really good resources, both from the Parkinsons Foundation and from Davis Phinney. Davis Phinney has just released a really interesting, it's kind of sex with Parkinson. I think that's what it's called, Parkinsons Sex. Let's see if I have it in this deck. I'll show it to you in a minute. But what I was talking about, laughing and doing ridiculous things with one another, here are partners just sharing touch with a balloon in between them. And the idea was they couldn't touch the balloon with their hands. If it fell, that they had to then get it, go somewhere and get it. But the idea was exchanging it in between. One couple, they got it in between their knees somehow, and they walked around the room with it slowly. It's always interesting, and they're always laughing. The beach, those of you in Florida, you happen to be in a place where you don't need to wear too much clothing, which is kind of great. And then again, there's always the hammock. I just love this picture so much, although I cannot imagine how they're going to get out of the hammock. And maybe they don't want to. So then there is also discrepancy in desire. Some of this can be because of the agonists in medication, and some people who actually should be talking to their physicians about a medication are people who may have some compulsive tendencies, not really understanding that it has to do with the medication. But this should be really, really well discussed between members of the couple. If somebody always wants sex or always wants to touch and the other does not, and how can you reach a meeting ground? I am not a sex therapist, so we're not really going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I do really want to bring it out into the open and, again, not hide it. So much of sex is hidden, and what we're talking about here is how can we be better couples together? One of the biggest ways is communicating. So a lot of people are not extremely expressive verbally. And what we did in this program was I found this great thing called the Emotions Wheel, and you can get it on Amazon, or I can send you copies of it. But what's interesting is the big emotions are like right in the center. And then you can say, today I really feel rather happy when I'm with you. And when you want to refine it, you go out a little bit and you find, I feel peaceful when I'm with you, or I feel powerful when I'm with you. And that to a feeling of creativity when I'm with you. So it's good to be able to say things to your partner about an experience you're having. When you did X, I felt Y. And you use, I'm sure probably you all know this by now, you use I statements. You're never turning it back on the partner. You're saying, this is how it made me feel. It might make you feel very differently. Here's another idea. I tried this in my last group because we happened to be live in a room. one of the gentlemen had a lot of problems. He'd had cataract surgery and it wasn't really successful. And he was very, very nervous about being in dark spaces. And he didn't even want to be with his partner. So this was full daylight. We were in the room. I had them both take scarves and put them around their eyes. I was with I always conduct this program with, if I'm live in a room, I have a physical therapist in the room with me. And if I'm here in my studio on Zoom, I have an intern who works with me here so that we can demonstrate everything that we're doing for all of you. Anyway, we were live in a room. I had a physical therapist with me. We steered this couple toward the wall so that they had the support of the wall. And both the physical therapist and I were guarding them on either side. And they just held on to each other and began shifting weight. Again, not knowing where they were in space was a little unsettling. It was a little scary, but they were doing it together. And then we sat them down and we had some snacks and they fed each other. Again, a very kind of intimate thing. A little unusual, but both of them seemed to really, really regard this as a new step forward with one another. So what our goal is for both people to feel safe and comfortable and to talk about what it means to feel that way. Again, sexually is something I am not really going to deal with here, but you don't have to discuss everything at once. You can take baby steps. And taking steps backward is also, there are a variety of different resources online that I'll direct you to if this is something that's of interest to you. I think I've talked a little bit about, I do remember, I'm not exactly sure which group, but after the 6-week program, which is now, by the way, a 4-week program, you do not have to mark your calendars for 6 weeks. In the close contact program, at the end, a woman who, again, was much smaller than her partner who had Parkinson's, and she said, now I know I'm not going to break him apart. She felt really comfortable in the way that we had learned to do this maneuvering of one another. Here are, again, a few different problems which may present, some of which have to do with Parkinson's and medication, and some of which may have to do with aging, some of which also may have to do with if you have not had sex for a while, if you're sleeping in different beds because of different sleep problems, getting up in the middle of the night, acting out dreams. If you are not cohabiting a bed, you again may have a variety of different problems getting back to this closeness with one another. It does not mean that you have to sleep together every night. But understand there can be difficulties with both people reaching orgasm, both erectile dysfunction and ejaculation, involuntary urination, anything due to the drug and talks that this 1 hour will make you call up and say to your MD or your RN, my partner and I would like to have a talk about intimacy and sex. They will be thrilled that you said it, so they don't have to. And again, just always asking, I think we know this from our kids who, once they were in dormitories and they were supposed to be sure that they were having consensual relations, that you ask one another, is it okay for me to touch you like this? Is it okay for me to stay close to you? Would you feel comfortable if I did whatever? Some great ideas to make things more comfortable are pillows, not just your bed pillows, But if you go online, there are pillows that conform to different parts of your body. So if it's very difficult for you to roll in bed, you can use one of those side-lying pillows. There are pillows that can prop up your hips if that is a problem for you. Lubricants are wonderful. Any kind of sex toy or sharing fantasies. Not doing this when you've just had a meal, and always starting with whatever you think of as foreplay. Probably very different for each person, and certainly using the bathroom before getting settled. So here's the resource from Davis Phinney that I was talking about. The beginning of it is a really nice outline by a sex therapist from Oregon named Sheila Silver, whom I happen to know and respect. And then there's this game that you can play with these cards. Again, it sort of allows, it takes the onus off of, oh my goodness, what am I going to do next with my partner? You deal a card and it gives you a suggestion so that you can follow it. If you don't like that card, you can pick another one. And then the book, which again details some of the things that Parkinson's may have changed in both your interest, your desire, and your ability to move freely. So I know that it was out of print for a while. I think it's now available online, but go and check. What we started with this last go round of the close contact program was in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins, who now hold the grant for my program. We decided as a recruiting tool, we would do what we call date night. And it was greatly successful. We did this in March. We're hoping to do it again this Sunday. And the idea was we turned the room, which was their regular exercise room, at their center, tablecloth and little kettles on each table. We served pastries and juice in champagne flutes. We had a fabulous guitarist from Peabody Institute of Music who played people in and then played for the dancing sequence later on. We did have an intimacy coordinator who talked to people on Zoom, and I explained a little more about the close contact program. We did write the love letters. We played with little balls, and I'll show you exactly what we did. And it was so much fun. So even if you are not near where I am, we may try and do something like this on Zoom. But the 4-week program is obviously easily done on Zoom, and I'm hoping you will all sign up. So that is the sharing. And I'm going to get rid of this. And just come back to the room. Have I stopped doing this? Where am I?
Yeah, we still see your screen.
You still see my screen.
There you go.
Okay, hi. So before I kind of do a physical demo here, I just wonder, are there questions, comments? Especially from the 2 couples who've done the program. I am obviously very curious as to how whatever we did a few years ago has changed or modified, or maybe it hasn't, but Sue, hi. Oh, wait a minute. I see Sue raised her hand. But
Yeah.
now,
Well, Roger and I did the class on Zoom, and it was very nice. We learned a lot about each other, and it was a lot of fun. When I was watching them with the balloons, I remembered that. And also it helps you to remember, you know, because having been married 42 years, it helps you remember the importance of touch. Sometimes you take each other for granted, you know, and like you said, with the masking, and things sometimes you can't read what the person is thinking or feeling, and so you have to communicate, as I, have always said, and how the program helps stress that verbal communication is important as well as physical, to help each other appreciate what you're feeling and what you're thinking, because with Parkinson's, the moods swing from one way to another, sometimes very quickly. And as a care partner, you can't always understand. So it's always good to learn how to improve that. And I see you've improved the program. So I highly encourage anyone. And even if you're not married, I know some people may just be friends as far as helping one another, but it still can be beneficial that way too.
I have actually had, I mean, this particular group, everybody was married this last time, but I have had a parent and child to do this together. And it was really interesting, this adult young woman with her mother and saying, I never even realized I'm not really touching my mother in a way that it was embarrassing for her to help her mother. And learning these techniques helped her to begin to open up this relationship with her. Anybody else? I know that this is a hard topic for people to just raise their hand and say, oh yeah, I want to talk about intimacy and Parkinson's, which is why I really, as Sue said, I don't know if it's improved the program, but I want to go to realms that are not touched by other people.
I can tell you a little bit what I remember of it, although it was a long time ago. I was amused because we did it while we were in Florida, but I think maybe everybody there was in Florida, but really lived in New York. It was actually kind of funny, or Philadelphia, maybe, I'm not sure. We did it a long time ago, but the things that we still do is learned about balance a little bit. So if Nancy's trying to help me get up from a couch or bed, which sometimes I need, I'm a lot bigger than she is, and it's really would be hard to do unless you know what you're doing. But if you kind of think about seesaw, teeter-totter, moving your center of balance, you can do it without a lot of strength and still be safe. So I always wonder when I go to my neurologist and they do that pull on your shoulders to see if you'll fall backwards, what would happen if I did fall backwards? I'd probably squash them, but yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Judd.
I want to show here what Judd is talking about. Let's see, do I want to change my screen here? So today, this is my partner. And what I have people do, again, is think about, rather than, it feels awful for the person doing it and the person receiving it. It's hard because obviously I'm doing myself, but it's amazing what you can do with one another, just kind of using your palms and moving them in space. And we can move them around, we can move up and down. And the way that we get out of chairs, which Judd was talking about, is using a lot of momentum. So if you were to want to go, and any of you who do Tai Chi will probably recognize this. If you want to go from taking a heavy object, right, like your refrigerator or a big person, and you want to tip them, you want to move them, you want to get them out of bed or chair. If I just use my little, I'm only 5'2" and I'm a small person, my little arms are really not going to be doing it. They won't successfully move anything. And I may hurt myself straining, right? So I want to use my whole body and use the momentum of that body with my partner, who's also going to be moving. So I'm going to be the partner for a minute. I am going to be holding my buddy. I'm going to be sitting at the front of the chair so that my back is against the air, not against the chair. And my partner can put their hands around my back. And then my partner's got their leg in between my legs. I'm holding their back. And we start rocking. And I, who need the help, I'm the one with agency. I get to say, I count. So I go, and 1, and 2, and 3, and then we just hug each other and stand there because maybe we have orthostatic hypotension, and standing still would make me feel unbalanced. This way I have my partner, you can see my feet are a little bit apart. So now I'm going to be the other person. I have my foot between their feet. I'm going to grab around their back, and they're going to start this rocking. And 1, and 2, and 3. We just stand. And actually, we have a few, I call that the hug. We have a few different mechanisms, again, depending on the size of the partners. We also have a variety of ways of helping people out of bed. And we, again, try and change roles to do all of that. The gait belt. Oh, I know to show you. Here is a can. I have taken all the V8 juice out of this can. And I'm only going to pour in 1/3. So any of you who remember your high school physics, you know that the volume, the center of gravity of the volume is right in, if the can is filled, the center of gravity is right here, right in the middle. Now, I have taken the center of gravity down because I'm short. Let's see if this works. I didn't measure out the water, but ta-da! Try this with your grandkids. So that's the kind of thing that is kind of startling about two bodies together, and how, like those tango dancers, although we're not dancing in this program, how they can really learn. Here's two people of the same size. Here's two people of different sizes, so that their centers of gravity can meet to do these various activities without the small person being hurt. And it's fun. Other questions or anything else that you want me to demonstrate?
Judith, let me get to the nitty-gritty, and that is 3 game changers: cannabis,
Excuse me?
cannabis, toys, and Viagra.
Cannabis, toys, and Viagra
Right.
in that order?
Not necessarily that order, but
Oh, okay.
it's a tough subject to broach, but
No, I'm really glad you asked. So again, cannabis, you have to discuss with your doctor how it interacts with levodopa and whatever other drugs you are taking, and when would be the best in terms of the medication cycle. When would be the best time for the two of you to have a few tokes? Again, I would say you start very small or with a gummy, and you don't overdo it.
right.
So that's thing one. Sex toys, I just think yes, and lubrication. And they make, I mean, saliva is fine, but they do make stuff that is similar to body fluids. And for older people, especially older women, really, really important. And especially if they haven't had penetrative sex for quite a while, really important. But there's all kinds of, there aren't just toys that look like penises, or, just small vibrators that can be used for both parties in a variety of places. Really wonderful. And again, fun to play with. Just like playing with balloons, playing with sex toys is liberating. And the third one,
Viagra.
cannabis,
Viagra.
Viagra. Oh,
Mhm.
once again, asking your neurologist how that interacts with the drugs that you are currently taking. Because I know for some people it does not have the same reaction because of the levodopa carbidopa. And Viagra typically takes an hour from ingestion. So you have to plot that out.
Is that helpful, Drew?
Yeah, no, I was throwing it in for the point of discussion here. Exactly.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Drew.
I mean, I
Anyone
don't
else
know.
have a question? Anybody else have questions about the program that Judith is talking about? And if you're interested in learning more about potentially joining on Zoom for a program? Like I
And
said, me
if
and Sue
okay.
did it.
Roger has all of my information. My website is anyonecanmove.com, and you can sign up right there. There's a contact thing. Because this is a granted program, there is no charge. All I ask is that you if you want to do it, and we have not yet set dates after that June live experience, and you don't have to have been in the date night. All I ask is if you are going to sign up that you do all 4 weeks, because it is as Roger and Sue and Judd and Nancy will tell you, and even more so now than it used to be, because we've condensed everything into 4 weeks. It's really important that you learn as you go along. And it's like an hour and a half each time now.
And it is a great program, so I would highly recommend it to any couples that are on here today. Anybody else have a question or comment? Oh, go ahead, Chris. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
The gate.
There you go.
Sorry, the gate belt.
Oh, yes, sorry. Wait a minute. Oh, yes, sorry. Wait a minute. Here is a gate belt. I dressed for the occasion. I dressed for the occasion. Oh, I don't know why I'm talking. Oh, I don't know why I'm. Do you hear me twice?
Good.
An echo. Anyway, this is a gate belt. It fits anyone from my size to the biggest people. And the great thing about these is there are handles, especially for like the shower, if you're slippery and wet. Really great to say to your partner, I'm taking a shower now. You might want to stand by. And you're in a room that's steamy and hot. It may make you a little unsettled, unbalanced. The idea of just keeping this around and really figuring out how you can use it, both for the shower and also getting in and out of the car, because you have to both turn and do that rocking and then get up out of the car seat. This is really useful for your partner to be able to put their arm around you and have something to hold on to. I think it is $14 on Amazon. And it's called, the manufacturer is Cow and Cow, as in the animal, a cow. And it's great. You may not need it now, but practicing things when you don't need them is wonderful for a time in the future when you might need it.
Good point. Does that answer your question, Chris? Okay.
I also want to say that your supermarket, depending on the part of the country you are living in, still has the terrible plastic bags, right? And I want you to imagine, I don't see Green Day. I want you to imagine that this is just a plastic bag that you got your apples in. And what you can do in the car is put one of these on the car seat. And it becomes a lazy Susan. So much easier to move sideways and to get your feet over that hump to get out of the seat.
Yeah, that's a
And it
great tip.
Thing.
Great tip.
And you can use them. This happens to be one of those huge plastic sheets. You can use it in bed as well if you have trouble getting out of bed.
All right. Anybody else while we're still all together? Everybody's reserved today.
Maybe if I go away, you'll talk about it. Seriously, because I know I'm not a part of your group. But if you would like me to go away, and again, you can contact me on my website or through Roger and Sue. And I'll do that. How's that?
All right. Well,
Thank you,
Judith. Thank you,
everybody.
Judith, for coming to our group, and thank you for sharing that. And I'm hoping some of our group will reach out to you and join your program.